Close your eyes and let your thoughts drift far to the east, across deserts, mountains, and endless rivers. There lies a land, vast beyond measure, a land of emperors and scholars, farmers and poets, warriors and dreamers. This is ancient China world, where dynasties rose and fell like the turning of seasons, where wisdom was written in brushstrokes, and where the balance of heaven and earth shaped every life. To the outside world, it was mysterious, distant, almost unreachable. But for those who lived there, it was home, a land of rice fields glistening in the sun, markets crowded with silk and spices, temples filled with incense smoke curling toward the sky. China was never only one kingdom. It was a mosaic of peoples, united and divided, conquered and reborn over thousands of years. The Yellow River nurtured its earliest villages, the Great Wall stretched across its northern frontier, and the Silk Road carried its riches to distant lands. And yet, as grand as its achievements were, the daily lives of most were marked not by luxury, but by toil. Tonight, we will wander gently through these worlds. The farmer bent beneath the sun, the sage Confucius speaking of harmony, the stones of the Great Wall stretching into the horizon, and the emperors behind the golden gates of the Forbidden City. Breathe deeply now. Let the modern noise fade and step with me into the quiet rhythm of ancient China, where history and legend mingle like ink in water, spreading softly across the centuries. Before there were dynasties or palaces, there were fields, endless fields, watered by the Yellow River. To be a farmer in ancient China was to live a life of labor, tied to the soil as tightly as roots to earth. Imagine the dawn. A pale mist hangs low over the river, the water thick with silt, turning it the color of clay. In a small village, houses of packed earth and thatched roofs stand close together, their walls cracked and rough beneath the touch. Inside, the air is cool and damp, the hearth cold after the night. You rise before the sun, your stomach empty, but your tasks already waiting. The tools in your hands are simple: a wooden plow, a hoe, a basket woven from reeds, oxen wait tethered nearby, their breath steaming in the morning air. The soil is fertile, yet it demands endless labor. Bend, lift, sow. Repeat. Your back aches, your hands blister, sweat runs into your eyes, though the day has only begun. The river is both a blessing and a curse. Its floods bring rich soil, renewing the fields year after year. But when its waters rise too high, they devour villages whole, sweeping away houses, animals, even families. One season brings abundance, the next ruin. Every meal depends on the moods of a river no one can control. The diet is plain: rice, if you live further south; millet and wheat, if you live along the Yellow River's banks; vegetables grown in small plots, flavored with garlic or ginger. Meat is rare, a luxury reserved for festivals or wealthier families. Most days, you eat what you grow, and hunger is never far behind. Your taxes are heavy. Grain is collected by officials of the state, filling storehouses not for you, but for the emperor and his armies. You give and give again, keeping only enough to survive. And in times of war, soldiers may march through, demanding more. The rhythm of life is hard, but not without beauty. In spring, blossoms scatter across the fields, carried by soft winds. In summer, cicadas hum endlessly as you labor beneath the sun. In autumn, the harvest brings brief relief, a moment of feasting, laughter, music played on bamboo flutes. And in winter, though the fields lie silent, you mend tools, tell stories by the fire, and wait for the cycle to begin again. Still, for the farmer, there is little escape. Each year mirrors the last, bound by the soil, the river, the demands of the state. To live is to endure, to bend without breaking, to find small joys in the endless struggle. Now picture the village at night. The fields lie quiet under a silver moon. Families huddle close in their homes, the air thick with the smell of smoke and earth. Somewhere, the river murmurs, steady, eternal, carrying both promise and peril in its waters. And in the stillness, you understand that life here was both a gift and a burden, a cycle as unyielding as the turning of the seasons. In the 6th century BCE, in a small state called Lu, a boy was born who would one day shape not only China, but much of the world's understanding of morality, order, and human duty. His name was Confu, though the world remembers him as Confucius. He was not born into wealth or power. His father, a soldier, died when Confucius was still a child, leaving the family poor. Yet even in hardship, the boy showed a hunger for learning. Imagine him as a young student, sitting in the dim light of an oil lamp, unrolling bamboo slips bound with string, practicing characters with brush and ink, his hand steady, his eyes sharp. Confucius grew up during a time of turmoil. The Zhou dynasty, once strong, was fracturing. Warring states fought for land and power. Armies clashed, and the people suffered under the weight of endless conflict. Order was fading, and chaos crept into daily life. It was this chaos that shaped his thought. He believed the way to restore harmony was not through conquest, but through virtue. He studied ancient texts, songs, and rituals, searching for wisdom in the past. He spoke of filial piety, respect for one's parents, elders, and ancestors. He taught of Ren, humaneness, the deep kindness that should guide every action. He insisted on Lai, proper ritual, the structure of behavior that maintained balance in society. Confucius traveled from state to state, offering his counsel to rulers. Picture him walking along dusty roads, his robe simple, a scroll tucked beneath his arm, followed by a few devoted students. At each court, he spoke not of wealth or war, but of justice, compassion, and order. Some listened politely, others dismissed him. He never held great power, yet his words carried weight beyond thrones and crowns. His students recorded his sayings, the seeds of wisdom that later became the Analects. In them, we hear his calm voice still. Do not impose on others what you do not wish for yourself. The strength of a nation derives from the integrity of the home. Respect yourself, and others will respect you. Confucius himself lived simply. His meals were plain, his clothes modest. He laughed easily, yet spoke with care. To his students, he was both teacher and father, guiding not only their minds, but their lives. When one faltered, he corrected gently. When one doubted, he encouraged with patience. He died without seeing his vision fulfilled. He did not unite the warring states, nor convince kings to abandon greed and conquest. Yet, in the centuries that followed, his teachings spread, carried by scholars, etched into stone, taught in every school. Emperors embraced his wisdom, and his philosophy became the foundation of Chinese society for 2,000 years. Now imagine him in his final days, seated quietly in his home in Lu. The chaos of the world still swirls beyond, but within there is calm. His students sit before him, listening, writing, remembering. His voice is soft, yet steady, like water flowing over stone. He knows he will not live forever, but his words will. Confucius reminds us that greatness does not always come from power or conquest. Sometimes it comes from the quiet strength of thought, the patience to teach, and the courage to hold to virtue when the world forgets it. His life was simple, yet his influence endures, gentle, steady, eternal, like the brushstrokes of ink that first carried his wisdom across time. Stretching across mountains, deserts, and valleys, the Great Wall of China remains one of the most enduring symbols of human determination. It snakes across the landscape like a stone dragon, rising and falling with the land, vanishing into mist, then appearing again on the horizon. But in its beginnings, it was not one continuous wall, it was many, built over centuries, piece by piece, stone by stone. Imagine yourself standing at the base of the wall in ancient times. The air is sharp, carrying the chill of the northern winds. Before you rises a rampart of packed earth, stone, and timber, built by the labor of thousands. Workers climb ladders with baskets of dirt and rock balanced on their shoulders. Soldiers march along the top, their spears glinting in the light, eyes fixed on the endless plains beyond. The wall was not built for beauty, but for survival. China's northern borders were vulnerable to raids from nomadic tribes, swift riders on horseback who struck and vanished before armies could respond. To defend against them, rulers ordered fortifications lines of defense that eventually joined to form the colossal structure we now call the Great Wall. The work was brutal. Laborers were conscripted from villages, farmers torn from their fields, prisoners sent to toil beneath the sun. Imagine the sound: hammers striking stone, the scrape of shovels in dry soil, the groans of men hauling timber. Food was scarce. Water carried in buckets over long distances. Many never returned home, their lives spent within the very wall they built. And yet, standing upon it, the view was breathtaking. Stretching out beneath your feet were ridges and valleys, rivers glinting in the distance, the sky vast and unbroken. The wall itself seemed endless, following the contours of the earth with tireless resolve. To the north, the plains faded into horizon. To the south, the villages and fields of China lay safe within its shadow. The wall was more than a barrier. It was also a road, carrying soldiers from post to post, signals flashing by fire or smoke from tower to tower. It was a message that the empire was strong, that its reach was vast, that its people stood united against threats beyond their borders. Centuries later, emperors rebuilt and extended it, replacing packed earth with stone, raising towers and fortresses. Each dynasty left its mark until the wall stretched thousands of miles. And though it did not always stop invasion, it endured as a symbol of resilience. Now picture the wall at dusk. The last rays of sun set the stones glowing gold, shadows stretching long across the ridges. Soldiers walk their patrol in silence, their footsteps echoing faintly. Far below, a river winds softly through the valley, its surface smooth as glass. The air cools, the stars begin to appear, and the wall becomes quiet, an ancient sentinel watching over the sleeping land. The Great Wall is not only stone and earth, it is memory, endurance, and the will of countless lives bound together in a structure so vast it defies time. To stand upon it is to feel both the weight of human struggle and the quiet persistence of hope carried across the centuries. Life in ancient China was shaped not only by rivers and harvests, but by the invisible lines of society. From the humblest farmer to the most powerful emperor, everyone had a role to play in the grand order of the world. To step outside that role was to invite chaos. To remain within it was to preserve harmony. At the very top sat the emperor. Imagine the forbidden city centuries later, walls and golden roofs gleaming in the sun, but even in earlier times. The idea of the emperor as the son of heaven was already deeply rooted. His duty was not simply to rule, but to maintain the balance between heaven and earth. If he governed with justice, the land prospered. If he ruled with cruelty, floods, famine, or rebellion were seen as signs that he had lost the mandate of heaven. Beneath him were the nobles, lords who ruled vast estates, generals who commanded armies, and ministers who advised on matters of law and ritual. Their homes were larger than most could imagine. Courtyards shaded by carved wooden beams, silk banners swaying in the breeze, servants moving silently through the halls. At their tables, meals were rich with rice, fish, pork, and wine, their lives buffered from the struggles of ordinary people. Yet their loyalty to the emperor was absolute, for their power flowed from him. Then came the scholars and officials. With brush and ink, they recorded the empire's laws, collected taxes, and preserved its history. To rise into their ranks, one needed not wealth alone, but knowledge. Picture a young man bent over bamboo slips, studying long into the night, his lamp flickering, his heart filled with the hope of passing the imperial examinations. Success meant honor, position, and security. Failure meant a return to the fields. For many families, education was the narrow bridge between poverty and prestige. Below them were the peasants, the vast majority of the population. Their lives were tied to the soil, their hands rough from plowing, their backs bent from harvests. Though they lived in hardship, peasants were valued more than merchants, for they provided the food that sustained the empire. Their taxes filled the granaries, their labor dug the canals, their sweat made possible the lives of all above them. Merchants, though wealthy, often occupied a lower rank in esteem. Their work was seen as profit-driven rather than life-giving. And beneath them, artisans, carpenters, potters, weavers whose skill shaped the tools and beauty of daily life, yet whose voices rarely reached beyond their workshops. At the very bottom were those with no land, no wealth, sometimes no freedom. Slaves, prisoners of war, and the poorest laborers lived under constant burden, their lives fragile, their existence often invisible. The structure was rigid, yet within it lay quiet movement. A farmer's son who excelled at study might rise to become an official. A noble who failed his duties could fall from grace. But for most, the lines were firm, and life was lived where one was born. Now picture the empire at night. In a noble's hall, lanterns glow on silk tapestries. In a scholar's chamber, a brush scratches softly across bamboo strips. In a farmer's hut, a family huddles close around a clay lamp, their meal small but shared. Above them all, in his palace, the emperor rests, the fate of millions bound to his dreams. This was the order of ancient China, a vast pyramid of lives, each supporting the one above, all connected by duty, belief, and the unyielding rhythm of tradition. Stretching across deserts, mountains, and endless plains, the Silk Road was not a single path, but a vast web of routes that connected China with lands as far away as Rome. Along these roads, goods moved, but so too did ideas, languages, religions, and dreams. To travel them was to step into a world of both hardship and wonder. Imagine the bustling city of Chang'an, the starting point of the Great Road. Its markets overflow with silk shimmering like water, rolls of fabric dyed in deep reds, blues, and golds. Merchants haggle over jade, porcelain, and lacquerware, while others prepare caravans for journeys that may last months, even years. Camels are loaded with bales of cloth, jars of tea, and sacks of spices, their bells tinkling softly as they kneel beneath their burdens. From here, the road stretches westward, across the Gobi Desert, where winds howl and sand swallows footprints within minutes. Caravans move slowly, the sun beating down by day, the cold seeping in by night. Travelers huddle together around small fires, their shadows long against the dunes, their voices hushed beneath the stars. Each mile is a test of endurance, yet also a step deeper into the unknown. Further along, the road climbs into the mountains. Snow clings to high passes, rivers roar in narrow gorges, paths cut sharply along cliffs. Here, traders share the way with pilgrims, monks carrying scrolls of sacred texts, soldiers guarding the caravans from bandits who lurk among the rocks. At every stop, cultures mingle. In oasis towns, the smell of roasted lamb mixes with the fragrance of incense, and voices in Chinese, Persian, and Greek weave together in the marketplace. A merchant from the east trades silk for horses bred on the steppes, prized for their strength and speed. From the west come glassware, silver, and strange spices that tingle on the tongue. But trade was more than goods. Along with silk and jade came stories, music, and belief. Buddhist monks carried their teachings into China, their quiet chants crossing borders as surely as caravans did. From China, paper traveled outward, a quiet invention that would one day change the entire world. Ideas of medicine, astronomy, and philosophy mingled, reshaping the knowledge of civilizations far apart, yet now linked. And always, there was silk, the fabric that gave the road its name. Soft, shimmering, nearly weightless, it was treasured beyond measure. To wear silk was to display wealth, refinement, and power. No wonder rulers in distant lands longed for it. No wonder caravans risked deserts and mountains to carry it. Now picture the Silk Road at twilight. A caravan halts beside an oasis, camels kneeling, their loads creaking as they are unbound. Traders sit around the fire, sipping tea, their faces illuminated by the soft glow. The air is filled with quiet conversation, the crackle of flames, the distant sound of water trickling among reeds. Above them, the stars stretch endlessly, the same stars shining over Rome, over India, over Chang'an itself. The Silk Road was never only about trade. It was about connection, about the invisible threads that tie humanity together across distance. It carried silk, yes, but also songs, prayers, and the simple hope that beyond the horizon lay not only strangers, but companions in the great story of life. If there was a golden age in ancient China, it was during the Han Dynasty. For over 4 centuries, from 206 BCE to 220 CE to 220 CE, the Han emperors ruled a land vast and diverse, uniting millions under one banner. It was a time of stability, of innovation, of cultural flowering that still echoes in China's identity today. Imagine walking through the capital city of Chang'an during the height of Han rule. The streets are wide, lined with shops selling silk, bronze mirrors, and scrolls of fine calligraphy. Officials in long robes stride past, their hats stiff with black wings. Farmers arrive with carts heavy with grain, while scholars carry bundles of bamboo slips, their brows furrowed with study. The city hums with life, yet it is orderly, structured, guided by the unseen hand of the emperor. At the heart of the dynasty was the emperor himself, regarded as the son of heaven. His duty was not only political, but cosmic, to preserve harmony between earth and sky. To aid him, the Han developed a vast bureaucracy, a system of officials chosen not by birth alone, but by learning. Here, the seeds of China's famed civil service took root. Young men studied the classics of Confucius, memorizing line after line, preparing for examinations that could lift them from obscurity into positions of honor. The Han were also builders. Canals carried water to fields, roads stretched across the empire, and watchtowers dotted the frontier. The Great Wall was repaired and extended, guarding against raids from nomads beyond the northern steppes. Villages grew into towns, towns into cities, their walls sturdy, their markets filled with color and noise. Science and invention flourished. Astronomers charted the movements of stars and planets, crafting calendars to guide both farming and ritual. Physicians recorded remedies from herbs and minerals, noting the balance of energies within the body. And most transformative of all, paper was invented, thin sheets made from mulberry, bark, and hemp, easier to carry than bamboo or silk. A quiet revolution in the preservation of knowledge. Trade expanded to the Silk Road, born during this time, carried the treasures of China westward, while foreign goods flowed inward: horses, spices, glass, and ideas that reshaped thought and faith. Buddhism, carried along these routes, entered China during the Han, mingling with existing traditions of Confucianism and Daoism, weaving new threads into the spiritual fabric of the land. Life for ordinary people improved, though hardship never vanished. Farmers still bent over fields, soldiers still stood watch on distant borders. Yet the stability of the Han gave them moments of peace, security, and pride. Festivals filled the calendar New Year celebrations with fireworks of bamboo exploding in sharp cracks, lanterns glowing softly against the night sky. Music, poetry, and dance enriched daily life, giving rhythm and beauty to existence. Now picture the dynasty at dusk. In the capital, the emperor's palace glows with lantern light, its golden roofs reflecting the last rays of the sun. In the countryside, farmers sit with their families, bowls of rice and vegetables before them, their laughter rising into the cool air. Along the frontier, a soldier leans against the stones of the wall, gazing at the stars, his heart both weary and proud. The Han dynasty eventually fell, as all empires do, undone by corruption, rebellion, and division. But its legacy endures. To this day, many Chinese call themselves the Han people, carrying the memory of that golden age forward. It was a time when order, knowledge, and creativity flourished, a time when China stood as one of the great lights of the ancient world. When we think of ancient China, we often think of its emperors, its walls, and its philosophies. But perhaps its greatest legacy lies in the quiet power of its inventions, discoveries that reshaped not only China, but the entire world. Imagine a small workshop, its walls of timber, its floor scattered with tools. A craftsman sits cross-legged, carefully mixing pulp from mulberry bark, hemp, and rags in a tub of water. With steady hands, he dips a bamboo frame into the mixture, lifts it slowly, and shakes it gently until the fibers settle into a thin layer. Left to dry in the sun, it hardens into something light, flexible, and revolutionary paper. Before paper, words were carved into bone or inscribed on bamboo slips, heavy and cumbersome. Silk was used to, but it was costly, far too precious for everyday records. Paper changed everything. Suddenly, knowledge could be carried more easily, stored in libraries, copied and shared. Government records multiplied. Scholars exchanged ideas. Poetry flourished. And in time, this simple sheet of fibers would travel far beyond China, carrying with it the seeds of literacy across the globe. Next, imagine a sailor standing on the deck of a wooden ship, in his hand, a small box with a spoon-shaped needle balanced carefully within. It always points in one direction. South. This was the compass, born of Chinese experiments with lodestone, a naturally magnetic stone. With it, travelers could find their way across mountains and seas, guided not by stars alone, but by the steady pull of the earth itself. The compass would one day guide ships across oceans, linking continents, reshaping history, but its first quiet steps were here in ancient China. Then there was gunpowder. Picture an alchemist in his chamber, shelves lined with jars of sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal. He seeks not weapons, but elixirs of life. Yet, when the powders are mixed, they ignite with a burst of flame and smoke. At first, gunpowder was used in festivals, in bamboo tubes that exploded with sharp cracks to drive away evil spirits. Later, it found its way into war-flaming arrows, fire lances, and eventually cannons. From celebration to destruction, its power was unmistakable, its influence vast. And finally, printing. In a quiet workshop, carved wooden blocks lie ready, each etched with characters in reverse. Ink is brushed across their surface, paper laid carefully upon them, and with a press of the hand, words appear in black upon white. Texts that once took months to copy by hand could now be reproduced swiftly. Knowledge multiplied, reaching further, spreading faster. Later still, movable type made the process even quicker. Books of medicine, philosophy, and poetry flowed outward, shaping minds and cultures. Each of these inventions, paper, compass, gunpowder, printing, was born from patience, curiosity, and the desire to solve simple problems. How to record more easily, how to travel more safely, how to protect or celebrate or pass on wisdom. Now, picture them at night. A scholar writes on paper by lamplight, his brush moving softly across the surface. A sailor watches his compass needle glimmer faintly in the firelight, steady in its direction. Children laugh as sparks of gunpowder burst in festival air, their joy echoing through the streets. A printer lifts a fresh page from his block, its ink dark and crisp, knowledge preserved for generations to come. These were not just inventions, they were gifts, threads woven into the fabric of humanity, shaping the world quietly, steadily, like the flow of a river through time. At the very heart of Beijing, behind towering red walls and golden roofs that gleam like fire beneath the sun, lies a palace so vast it was a world unto itself. For nearly 5 centuries, it was the home of emperors, the Forbidden City. Its gates were guarded, its halls silent, its courtyards endless. Few could enter, fewer still could leave. To live here was to dwell not in a palace, but in a universe built for power, ritual, and awe. Imagine approaching its gates in ancient times. The Meridian Gate rises before you, massive and imposing, its 5 archways painted in brilliant red. Drums echo from within, and banners ripple in the wind. Beyond lies a labyrinth, of nearly 10,000 rooms, arranged with perfect symmetry along a central axis. Each building aligns with heaven itself, reflecting the emperor's role as the bridge between the earthly and the divine. Step into the courtyards, and you feel the hush. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by centuries of processions. Incense burns faintly in bronze censers, its smoke curling upward into the open sky. Guards stand silently in polished armor, their eyes fixed ahead. Somewhere, deep within, the emperor walks his presence unseen, yet felt in every shadow. Inside the palace halls, the air is heavy with ritual. Golden dragons coil across painted beams, their eyes watching all who enter. Silk curtains ripple softly, and lacquered screens hide the movements of attendants. Here, the emperor holds audience, receiving officials who kneel before him, their foreheads pressed to the ground. His words are few, yet each syllable carries the weight of destiny. For the emperor was not merely a ruler, he was the son of heaven, his authority flowing from the cosmos itself. Yet behind the grandeur lay lives both secluded and controlled. Within the inner court, the empress and concubines lived apart from the outer world, their days filled with ceremony and careful order. Eunuchs managed the hidden rhythms of the palace, carrying messages, guarding secrets, ensuring that no part of life within those walls was ever free from structure. To live in the Forbidden City was to surrender oneself to ritual, to move like a piece upon a vast and silent chessboard. For the common people, the palace was a mystery. Its walls were high, its gates rarely open. They imagined the emperor walking among golden halls, surrounded by treasures beyond comprehension. And in truth, treasures did fill the palace. Jade carvings, smooth as water, porcelain glowing like frozen light, scrolls of poetry and calligraphy that spoke of wisdom centuries old. But even emperors were not free from burden. In the quiet of night, they too worried about famine in the provinces, about rebellion in the distant borders, about whether the mandate of heaven still rested upon their shoulders. Their palaces were vast, but their responsibilities greater still. Now picture the Forbidden City at dusk. The red wall glows softly in the fading sun. Lanterns flicker in the courtyards, casting long shadows across stone. Servants move silently, closing doors, lighting lamps. The emperor retreats deeper within, his figure vanishing behind silk curtains. Outside, Beijing hums with life, but within these walls, silence reigns. The Forbidden City was more than a home. It was a symbol, a statement that China itself was eternal, ordered, and immense. To walk its corridors, even in imagination, is to feel both awe and stillness, a reminder of the weight of power and the solitude it often brings. In ancient China, the heart of life was not found in palaces or marketplaces, but within the family home. Behind mud brick walls in villages, or within courtyards in cities, families formed the fabric of society. Harmony in the household was seen as essential, for it reflected harmony in the empire itself. Imagine a modest courtyard home. The air smells faintly of smoke from the hearth, where rice boils softly in a clay pot. Chickens cluck in the corner. Children chase one another, their bare feet pattering against the worn stones. At the center of the household stands the father, the head of the family, his authority reinforced not only by custom, but by centuries of belief. Yet, just as central, though less visible, was the mother, whose quiet labor sustained every breath of daily life. Women's roles were shaped by Confucian ideals. Obedience was expected, first to fathers, then to husbands, and in old age, to sons. Their lives were not their own, but woven into the duties of kinship. Still, within these boundaries, women carried immense responsibility. They managed the household, oversaw servants where wealth allowed, spun cloth, brewed wine, and ensured that meals were placed before the family each day. Marriage was arranged, often sealed by contracts on bamboo slips or paper. A bride entered her husband's family home not as an equal, but as a bearer of continuity, her role to produce sons, to honor ancestors, to strengthen bonds between families. The wedding itself was filled with ritual: red silk garments, offerings to ancestors, music played on flutes and drums. Beneath the joy, however, was the weight of expectation that shaped her new life. Motherhood was revered, yet perilous. The birth of a child brought celebration incense lit, prayers whispered to household gods, but danger always lingered. Midwives worked tirelessly, yet many mothers and infants were lost in the silence of night. Those who survived carried hope forward, each child a promise to the family line. For daughters, the path was narrower. They were trained to be obedient, industrious, modest. Their worth was often measured by the alliances their marriages could bring. Yet, in small ways, within courtyards and kitchens, they found joy painting delicate flowers on silk, singing songs to their children, telling stories passed down through generations. Some women, however, rose beyond the ordinary. In certain dynasties, empresses wielded great influence, guiding emperors or even ruling in their stead. Wu Zishan, for instance, centuries later, would rise from concubine to empress, shaping China with an iron will. And in temples, priestesses and nuns found lives apart from marriage. Their devotion turned to gods and spirits rather than households. Family life itself was a web of duties. Children bowed to parents. Parents honored ancestors. Offerings of food and incense linked the living with the dead. Festivals brought families together, sharing dumplings in the new year, lighting lanterns against the night sky, remembering those who came before. Now picture such a home at night. The courtyard is quiet, the stars bright overhead. A mother hums softly as she lays her child upon a straw mat. The father sits nearby, mending a tool by lamplight. Grandparents rest in silence, their eyes half closed, listening to the crickets. It is simple, fragile, yet deeply human. This was the rhythm of family life in ancient China, demanding, constrained, but also filled with bonds of care and continuity. Within these walls, the empire found its strength, for the harmony of millions of households was believed to sustain the harmony of heaven and earth itself. In ancient China, life was never only about survival or power. It was also about harmony with forces unseen. The people believed the universe itself was balanced between opposites, light and dark, male and female, heaven and earth, yin and yang. To live well was to keep this balance, both within the self and within the world. Imagine standing in a Taoist temple at dawn. Wooden beams rise above you, painted with curling dragons, their scales bright even in the dim light. Smoke drifts from sticks of incense, carrying prayers upward, their scent sweet and sharp in the morning air. Monks move quietly through the halls, their robes whispering as they pass, their chants soft and steady, flowing like water. Daoism taught that the world should not be forced into shape, but followed gently, like a river's current. To find peace, one must live simply, in harmony with nature, listening to the quiet rhythm of the Tao way. Elsewhere, in courtyards and classrooms, the voice of Confucius lingered. His teachings shaped not only families, but governments and schools. He did not speak of gods, but of duty, respect for elders, loyalty to rulers, compassion between people. His philosophy became the structure upon which society stood, guiding lives with order as carefully as the emperor's hand guided the state. Then came Buddhism, carried along the Silk Road from India. Monks brought scrolls of sutras, stories of the Buddha, statues carved from stone and wood. Imagine entering a monastery where golden images of the Buddha sit in serene silence, their faces calm, their hands folded in gestures of peace. The sound of chanting rises in waves, low and resonant, carrying a sense of stillness across the halls. For many, Buddhism offered comfort, a path beyond suffering, a hope for release from the endless cycles of life. Together, these traditions, Daoism, Confucianism, Buddhism, interwove, shaping the heart of China. They did not always compete. Often they blended. A man might honor his ancestors with Confucian rituals, seek harmony with nature through Taoist practice, and find spiritual solace in Buddhist teaching. In this blending lay a unique wisdom, the understanding that life is many-sided, that truth can wear many faces, that harmony is found not in exclusion but in balance. Now picture the land at night. A Taoist sage sits upon a mountain, gazing at the moon. In a scholar's home, a brush scratches gently across paper, recording the words of Confucius. In a monastery, candles flicker and monks chant through the dark. Across villages, families bow before small household altars, offering food and incense to ancestors who remain part of their lives. The air hums with quiet reverence, a recognition that the visible and the invisible are never far apart. And so, our journey through ancient China comes to an end. We have walked the rice fields along the Yellow River, sat at the feet of Confucius, climbed the stones of the Great Wall, and wandered the halls of the Forbidden City. We have followed caravans along the Silk Road, discovered the quiet revolutions of invention, and listened to the prayers whispered in temples beneath the stars. Ancient China was a world of contrasts, hardship and splendor, simplicity and grandeur, silence and song. Its people sought not only to live, but to live in harmony with their families, their rulers, their gods, and the vast forces of heaven and earth. As you rest now, let your mind drift to those distant landscapes. See the mountains rising above mist, the rivers winding silver beneath the moon, the lanterns glowing softly in quiet courtyards. Hear the faint echo of bamboo flutes, the rustle of silk, the whisper of wind in temple trees. These voices of the past are gentle now. They do not demand. They only linger, soft reminders of a world that once was, and of the timeless search for balance that still guides us today. Let the rhythm of their lives fade into the rhythm of your breath. Let the images dissolve into quiet. Sleep, like a calm river, carries you onward, steady and unbroken, into the peace of the night.